Welcome back. You're watching the news from Kazakhstan. I'm Max Jalilovich, and these are the headlines for today. The talks involving the head of the BIS company and the trade union leader of the prevailing Kazakhstan almost ended in a fight. The misunderstanding was caused by the poor choice of words. The operation of Kazakhstan's Communist Party's Kostanay branch is suspended for another 6 months. Its leader is fined for making a publication in a party newspaper. Prices grow, but the inflation is falling. Kazakhstan's MPs accuse the country's statistics agency in providing false data and inciting social hatred. Kairat Amandykov, the deputy chairman of Kazakhstan's Trade Unions Federation, has visited Kyzylarda on Monday at the request of the regional parliament. The official met with the parties involved in the disputes linked to the BIS servicing company. To recap, Kyzylarda BIS company lost tender in late February to the Chinese Kazakhstan. As a result, the local company that used to be successful on the market dealing in transportation of oil and formation water now has suspended its operation. 750 men have lost their jobs. The dialogue with the companies didn't work out. The meeting of the parties nearly ended in a fight, and the BIS director was accused of unwillingness to change his principles. The guest from Astana attempted to calm down the others and urged them not to be provoked, as some third force might take an unfair advantage of the situation. I see and I believe you have intentions to do good for people, but somebody can take an advantage of this entire situation and provoke further tension. I'm asking you all, including journalists, to elucidate news positively and objectively. Diltakhan Akhmetov, BIS General Director, tried to tell the representative of the country's Trade Unions Federation the truth about his company and even provided him with documents like unanswered letters that he had sent to the high-level state bodies. Apparently, over a month of the standstill, neither the city administration nor the public prosecution got involved in the situation to protect people who were about to lose their jobs until the rumors got to the city MPs, says Mr. Akhmetov. Another participant of the meeting, Yelusin Dusenov, a trade union chairman at the Chinese Kazakhstan, has repeatedly interfered with the director's emotional speech. According to Dusenov, Akhmetov could have agreed to work with those who won the tender and could pay workers all the less amount of about 166 USD. But the director of BIS got extremely dissatisfied over minor scope of work, and bickering almost boiled over into a fight.
Қолынан келгенін істе. Қолынан келіп отыр. Қазір үлгермесең. Қолынан келгенін істе деп. Қалай тұрсыз сен?
Сами увидели, чем это закончилось на повышенных тонах.
You've seen it and you know that the emotions were heated. We'll keep sorting things out. I'll take 2 or 3 more days as we arranged a meeting with the companies on April 4. We'll once again look through all of the documents and weigh all their pros and cons. We stand for the workers' rights and their interests are vital for us. We'll make sure that people are able to retain their jobs and maintain the social and economic status on the whole. The companies' tension is their own internal controversies and they will be settled in court as any party can do so. President trial Judge Aralbayna Gashibayev rejected a large amount of submitted petitions after attorneys expressed concern regarding the health conditions of their clients. However, according to physicians' evaluations, there is no immediate need for hospitalization.
Both plaintiffs who withdrew their claims and those who confirmed theirs were in the courtroom yesterday. The complainants who lost their cause in yurts retracted their claims, stating that the defendants were not to be blamed. The representative of Halyk Bank Kazakhstan has confirmed these statements. Aynagul Izbasarova, another plaintiff, has estimated her damage at nearly $54,000. She was a shop owner in Zhanaozen and, despite defense lawyers' attempts, was indecisive of who was to reimburse her damages. Judge Aralbayna Gashibayev interrupted the talks, having restrained further questioning.
Families of the defendants present at the trial believe their loved ones are innocent. Most family members have to travel large distances to attend hearings, which is very inconvenient. One of the accused is Nauren Jalgizanov, the son of Shandoz Aktayeva. He is charged with taking part in mass disorders, using force against law enforcement agents and looting.
Mother of Naren Jarylgasynov, one of the accused in the Zhanaozen case, now looks after his children. Last year, on December 19th, policemen arrested my son when he was out smoking, grieves the old woman. 3 days before this happened, he got beaten up by the law enforcement officers and was taken to hospital with head injury. Shandoz Aktayeva has met Naren only once at the detention facility. He is innocent, he got dragged away along with the others, says the woman. He was arrested on 19th. Ever since, my son has been kept in custody. Now he's being sued, but he is not guilty of anything. He didn't insult or hurt anyone. He tagged along with the rest, and it all happened when he was there with them. Someone is trying to point fingers, but that's the situation right now. He has 3 minor children left. Shandoz Aktayeva says that while her son had full-time job, he took a mortgage credit and now there's no money to pay it off. The old woman's pension is barely enough to survive. It is difficult to Shandoz to attend court proceedings. Since the trial is not held in Ozen, it is now difficult for such poor people like us to travel to Aktau. We can't do it even if we wanted to. They are not letting us to do it. When they see us, they beat everyone. Look, my hand is all bruised up. That day, the police dragged people around, forced them back, pushed them around. Some managed to enter and others did not, while children got locked inside their homes. There's no one to look after the children. After attending today's hearing in Aktau, Shandoz exited the courtroom in tears. She was not allowed to pass some food and clothes to her son, yet she still has hope for justice and an acquittal.
Public organizations' leaders appealed to Kazakhstan's MPs, stating that the main goal of the Zhanaozen trial is not to find out who is responsible for mass disorders, but to suppress the opposition using the incitement of social hatred as a possible cause. One of the appeals authors, a former senator, Zauresh Patalova, says the trial draws away the attention from people who gave the order to open fire at civilians and who executed that order.
The inaction of state officials in regards to solving important social issues had led to a situation where a specific social conflict escalated into an international political problem. When members of European and other democratic parliaments discuss the Zhanaozen events, the position of the Kazakh parliament remains uncertain. It simply avoids this rather big conflict within the country. Kazakh citizens are calling for parliamentary hearings over the developments in the Mangistau region in 2011 with involvement of representatives of Kazakh and international communities in order to prevent a repetition of Mangistau events and to establish real reasons behind the conflict.
The appeal was signed by 24 people, mostly representatives of various Kazakhstan's NGOs. The head of the Amansauluk Foundation, Bakht Tumenova, is amongst them.
Honored Doctors reminds that parliamentarians of the last convocation ignored the labor conflict. Throughout the 7 months of the strike, this issue was never addressed inside the parliament. Tumenova noted that new MPs never placed the December 11 events on their agendas as well. Those parliamentary hearings need to be expanded to involve the committees created by the public. It goes without saying that MPs elected by the people also need to participate along with the others.
On March 30, Astana Administrative Court has suspended the operation of Kazakhstan's Communist Party by 6 months and also fined the regional organization leader Lyudmila Gorbenko. The prosecution office has instigated an administrative case for the violation of the law on public associations. Apparently, Gorbenko has published a news digest in a party newspaper Iskra, while the prosecution believes she had no right to do so since the operation of her organization was initially suspended until April 24.
Another hearing is scheduled for tomorrow, this time in the case of Sergei Ryzhkov, the head of the Akmola Regional CPK Committee. The occasion for the trial is the prosecutor's decision to charge Ryzhkov according to Clause 2 of Article 374 of the Administrative Code and for mass media publications on behalf of the party during the period of suspension. Ryzhkov may be held liable to a fine of around $500 and is likely to face suspension of the branch activities. This had already happened to him back in October of 2011 when the Communist Party of Kazakhstan was suspended for 6 months for participation in an unregistered People's Front movement. Chances are this time the party may be shut down for good. I'm now being blamed for the whole situation with the public association activities suspension.
Gennady Nam agreed to comment the legal component of the situation linked to the suspension of Kazakhstan's Communist Party.
There's nothing fair there. This is just another fraud of the authorities to stop the activities and nothing more. There's no legal substantiation, just complete mayhem. Moreover, the activities of the company were suspended and they're suspending it repeatedly. I just don't get it since our court is unpredictable. I'm not sure whether it is useful or not, but it is pointless for sure. But of course I will appeal the decision.
Daniel Moldashov, the publishing director behind the Golos Respublika newspaper, is held in a private house located in the Kamenka village near Almaty and is heavily guarded by National Security Committee officers. The information came from Respublika's regular informant known as Aman Shabdarbayev, who says the house in question is located next to the buildings of rural administration and tax inspection. The informant notes that Moldashov is treated in much the same way that Altenbek Sarsenbayev, his assistant and driver, was after the kidnapping in 2006. To recap, Moldashov was summoned to the National Security Committee on March 28 for questioning, and no one has seen him since. Danyar is constantly kept in a locked room without a TV set and he's let out only for bathroom breaks. The food is also brought here. Danyar is subjected to investigation activities under pressure and without his attorney. The only good news is that he's not beaten anymore. Armed servicemen of the National Security Service are constantly guarding him and they were instructed to open fire if there is an escape attempt. When there is a need to take him to the city, a bag is placed on Danyar's head and it's removed only when he's taken out of a car. On Monday, a new group was launched in various social networks in support of Mukhtar Jankishev, the former head of Kazatomprom, who was sentenced 2 years ago to 14 years in prison on charges of embezzlement and corruption. The group in Facebook is managed by Aygerim Jankishev's eldest daughter, who will post updates about her father's health and condition, as well as current developments in his case.
This page is dedicated to Mukhtar Jakishev, my dear father, a close friend, and a deserving example of a true Kazakh. His arrest and sentence shocked not only close ones, but also many people in Kazakhstan and abroad. For this very reason, I want to dedicate this group to all the people who care and support my father Mukhtar Jakishev, to all the people who care about his fate and who want to help or even just want to learn the truth. Using this opportunity, I want to thank everyone for support. In February of this year, Mukhtar Jakishev refused to participate in a trial over the second criminal case instigated against him unless the trial was open to public. Jakishev is accused of illegal sale of uranium deposits to foreign investors. According to the intelligence, while holding the position of Kazatomprom president, Jakishev was illegally trading shares of Kazakhstan's major uranium deposits to companies registered in offshore zones. At the end of 2011, Jakishev filed a petition to conduct an open trial. However, the judge rejected the appeal.
Intense thawing is reported in western Kazakhstan, which led to the closing of a highway section Kastalovka-Zhanibek next to the Russian border. The head of the Regional Civil Protection Department, Alexander Ivanov, says the situation is quite difficult in both Kastal and Jangal districts, where 22 settlements are located in the flood risk areas. Over 2,000 rescuers and volunteers were deployed to the region. Last week, pregnant women and people in need of urgent surgical treatment were evacuated from the area. At the moment, residents of western Kazakhstan are waiting for the arrival of rescuers from Atyrau, Aktyubinsk and Kizilorda. Kazavia has urgently deployed one of its rescue helicopters to the region, as rescuers say the peak of floods at the rivers of Bik and Small Uzeni is expected on April 7. During the Monday's parliament hour, Kazakhstan's MP summoned the country's statistics agency head. Alihan Smilov's report boosted impressive figures that painted a rosy picture of positive growth trends and general prosperity. According to the statistics agency's data, the inflation rates are steadily declining despite the constant growth of prices. Nevertheless, the MPs were reluctant to believe their presented numbers. Figures don't lie, but can be easily manipulated. Yesterday, members of Kazakhstan's parliament summoned the head of statistics agency and tried to persuade him to stop misinforming people. However, Alihan Smilov countered all of the attacks, while MPs went through the numbers again and again. In June, you reported on the number of sheep and goats, saying there are 14.6 million of them. The following month, the number is 14.6 million for sheep and 4 million for goats. This is an obvious lie. MPs were especially outraged with the so-called macroeconomic indices. The chief statistician claims that the inflation in the country is declining. For instance, it reached 0.3% in March. At the same time, Smilov reported about the rising food prices, though the increase is minor, even hardly noticeable as compared to the rising incomes. This is why he says outright that consumers may be wrong and his statistics never lie. Each particular consumer sees only a market basket in his specific location and usual places for shopping, while official statistics simultaneously monitors 508 positions in all regional centers, the cities of Almaty and Astana, and 87 settlements around the country. But members of parliament were persistent in their attempt to get Smilov back on track, explicitly saying that his statistics lie. The statistics agency has no data on a number of physically challenged people and elderly in the country. There are no numbers for people injured at work at all. Debating the latter, MPs couldn't find a uniform opinion. Vinogradov, a timberman, has a monthly salary of over $300, and Kadyrov, a drifter, is paid $640. That's why I insisted on visiting the mine, their place of work. $1,350, that's the minimum salary there. These figures you showed were intended to make lesser welfare payments to the poor disabled workers. Parliamentarians asserted that the subsistence minimum is unappreciable, the poverty boundary is unreasonably understated, and it's deprecatory to summarize average salary from significantly different ways of managers and their subordinates. After that, Smilov was told that his agency may be responsible for another case of incitement of social hatred. Speaking of supposedly insignificant price hikes, starting April 1st, energy rates in Pavlodar and other parts of the country has grown by 7%. Apparently, the rise could have been even bigger.
Not a year goes by in Pavlodar without increase in electrical energy rates. Representatives of Natural Monopolies Regulation Agency say that once the energy costs rise at power stations, the rates are bound to increase as well. According to their information, the monopolists had a 16% rate increase in mind. However, the officials approved only a 7% rise. Water and heat rates increased as well on April 1st. The main reason for increased rates is the rise in electrical energy costs. Electrical energy generated by electrical stations in the country, especially those located in Pavlodar and kplus. Another reason is the increase in rates by energy distribution companies.
The former Atyrau mayor Salimjan Nakbayev is sentenced to 4 years in prison for power abuse. The verdict against the official was announced on Monday.
The defense state that they have never received an explanation on what exactly was interpreted as arbitrariness in the court. The case was instigated back in November of 2011, and since March, Salimjan Nakbayev was being wanted by the criminal police department. He was captured a few days ago in West Kazakhstan at the Russian border. Nakbayev was the Atyrau administration head for the period from 2006 to 2009. Then he became a deputy head of the regional administration. The defendant's attorney finds the court sentence unjust and intends to file an appeal. Besides, the lawyer believes that whole case has been fabricated and was instigated by former policemen. His accusations are illegal, says the lawyer. However, the court rejected all the defense motions. None of the investigation arguments have been supported by evidence so far. Ulyanov, the informer, is an ex-DIA officer fired for fraud. Citizens filed numerous complaints against him. Besides, he was convicted of attempting murder with a service gun. But all those charges were investigated and eventually covered by the DIA.
Cases of slavery are reported in Karaganda region. Just recently, a man was found on the street with clear signs of torture. The victim said he worked at a winter farm for food, while his so-called owners often got drunk and tortured him and other workers. Oksana Tarabukina, head of Kaysar Community Trust, is not buying food for herself. It's for Vladimir Babich, who is currently under her care. Vladimir has been admitted to a psychiatric unit in Temirtau as he is in need of medical assistance. When he got to the spiritual center of drug and alcohol rehabilitation, his condition was quite poor. He was obviously starving and was covered in frostbites and burns. The condition was critical, and he was also depressed. That's why he wouldn't interact with anybody or open up. Vladimir Babich is another victim of slavery. The man was sold and resolved from one of winter farm to another, where he was working just for a plate of food. The last slave owners in their drunken stupor entertained themselves by sadistically torturing Vladimir and then brought him badly injured to Karaganda, where he was simply abandoned on the street. They were entertaining themselves by burning him with a hot poker and torturing him in other ways. This is a rather difficult situation, often with a predictable outcome. As a rule, when men are no longer able to work, their owners either abandon them or give them about $7, the price of a ticket to Karaganda, in order to get rid of their victims and to avoid a murder accusation. The victims of slave labor are often admitted to the spiritual center. The scenario is similar in all cases. Men are brought to remote winter farms, their passports and IDs are taken away from them, and they are forced to work for food. They remain enslaved until they are no longer capable of working.
Во-первых, ты не убежишь, даже если захочешь. Даже если ты попадешь на трассу.
It's impossible to run away in winter even if you try. Even if one gets as far as the highway, they'll catch you. Even with the help of local police, it will bring you back to the same master. If, God forbid, something goes wrong, a ship goes missing or something, they will press you for that. And problems like that happen all the time, so the slavery is really for life. By the end of it, I could barely get up and hardly moved. It seemed I was dying. So they considered their option either to bury me on the spot or get rid of me in some other way, so they put me on a bus and sent away. The Polish footage shows how slave owners punish a disobedient slave for his attempt to escape. This is a rare case when so-called masters of human fates were brought to justice. More often, victims of slave labor cannot even tell where exactly they were kept or who were exploiting them without their mercy. The causes behind people's troubles vary. Some lose their jobs or homes and end up living rough. Some volunteer for slavery looking for a way to feed themselves, and others are kidnapped. The outcome in the best case is lost health and living in the streets again. In the worst case, it's another unsolved crime to add up to the numbers. A juvenile inspector from South Kazakhstan can be imprisoned for up to 10 years after exercising very special education methods against the minors.
According to investigators, the senior police officer was under intoxication when he came to the vocational school dormitory at night and forced 58 children to go outside and stand in the rain for about an hour. He was beating those who refused to comply with the order. This resulted in 2 students visiting a doctor. It had been only 2 months since the 26-year-old man became an inspector. The law enforcement officer was now being convicted of abuse of power and bullying minors. Having come to the school dormitory, he woke up all the underage students. 2 of them sustained slight bodily injuries resulting from a few kicks in the head.
Universal policeman system is introduced in Pavlodar following the Internal Affairs Ministry's idea. The new force will replace both traffic and patrol police at the same time. If the experiment will be deemed successful, it will be replicated in other parts of the country.
A new department, the Administrative Police Authority, was founded by merging traffic and patrol police of the region. This division officers will monitor roads and public places at the same time. Law enforcement agencies informed that the establishment of a pilot division increased the number of patrolling units. For instance, in the past there were 18 road patrol units in Pavlodar, whereas now the division is twice as large. The so-called universal policemen have already excelled. They cleared 2 crimes on the first day alone. This patrol incurs obligations of the local head officer as well as a district police inspector. This means that the unit must ensure public order while on its administrative area. However, we have already set a task to operate in the most crime-prone places such as restaurants and nightclubs, as well as schools during daytime.
On Monday, Almaty's psychiatry specialist revealed that Kazakhstan lacks specialized medical facilities and personnel for treating patients with mental disabilities.
The Aman Saulik Public Foundation leader Bakhit Tumenov proposed to adopt the methods widely practiced in Western countries, including Lithuania, which some Kazakh specialists have visited just recently. Specialists outlined that aside medication, patients also need specialized rehabilitation centers, daycare facilities and labor opportunities. According to one of the press conference participants, Amanjol Basiryanov, people with mental disorders are often discriminated at workplace. He also said he cannot win the procurement contracts from the healthcare ministry for already 3 years, as it is often gives preferences to other entrepreneurs. According to official statistics, by the end of 2010, we had about 300,000 patients in mental health facilities across the country, which makes up about 2% of the country's total population. As Bakhit Tumenova had just commented, this is only the people who are diagnosed officially and are supervised. Indeed, these numbers are rather high, unfortunately. 30% of them are disabled, and they are not rendered proper aid that they are supposed to get.
Полноценную помощь, которая должна оказываться, им до сих пор в стране не оказывается им.
Karaganda's Ecological Museum, together with Atomic Testing Museum in Las Vegas, has launched the project Nuclear Weapons Testing Legacy, the Tale of Two Cultures. The $2,000 project will collect reports of people from the infected areas and ultimately lead to a special documentary on the subject. We want to reach out to Kazakh, American and other international communities and tell them about the real situation in our country. The whole world heard about nuclear weapons tests somewhere out there, but how many people do really know about the impacts on health and lives of people? We live in times when so many states want to have nuclear weapons. The film will be based on true events and stories of real people. It was inspired by the employees of the Karaganda Environmental Museum and Nevada Testing Range Historical Foundation. The film will be produced jointly with Kazakh and American students from the areas influenced by the nuclear test. The project initiators claim that only those whose family or friends have been directly impacted by the problem can provide credible materials for the film.
Through videography, photography, and social media, students will interpret the lingering effects of nuclear weapons testing in the surrounding communities and explore how the two societies have responded to their common challenges.
Patriotic pro-government youth and a number of local pop stars are planning to continue promoting Kazakhstan and its achievements in accordance with the president's annual address. Although this time the planned activities will be held only inside the country. Numerous questions on why it is so important to promote the country's image, which authorities believe is already quite known and respected, seem to annoy the young activists and members of the Ulitau band. They were more interested in telling reporters how they are going to manage their grand campaign. It seems, however, that there is little to the plan after all. The campaign will take off in Taraz city by planting trees. All the organizers are reluctant to reveal who is going to pay for everything. Nevertheless, they did note that they will accept any sponsor aid, and by the end of the meeting plainly reminded everyone that the promotion of the country's image is one of the president's goals set in his annual address. To love and promote the country, that's what our president's message is all about. These are the tasks he addresses in his speech, which will always remain topical. This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.